Hopefully the Chicago Cubs got some good team bonding in Japan because their baseball skills, they didn't make the trip.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olbert. I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you, 2 thumbs down on all things Cubs. Thank you for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and give us a comment below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Howdy, everybody. Good morning. Just after 8 a.m. Central Time, before anybody has played a game besides the Cubs and Dodgers, our Cubs, our Cubbies are 0-2 with a lifeless, same old 2024 type performance. We have a lot to get to. Later in the show, I'm going to talk about what's next for the Cubs and how do you handle 8 days off and what do you do with that. It's a couple positive takeaways, but we're going to start with just summarizing this game because unlike yesterday's game, which felt kind of status quo, hey, you're not going to win when you walk that many guys and, Tucker and Suzuki don't do anything, whatever. This game felt like it was winnable. There were some calls, unfortunately, we'll have to discuss as well. But this was a game that, again, a lot of talk. I see the chat. Oh, the Dodgers are so great. My first big takeaway is that these 2 games were much more about the Cubs playing poorly than the Dodgers being this unbelievable super team. The Dodgers were missing 2 of the best baseball players in the universe, 2 future Hall of Famers. This lineup, you compare the Dodgers lineup today with the Cubs lineup today on paper, it's not that lopsided. The Cubs just made tons of mistakes and didn't do their job. So let's get into it. I'm frustrated. I'm tired. Let's start with this. Before we get into the exact details of the game, let's start with this. Let's acknowledge that, yes, these are just 2 games, but when we are in a position where you play 2 games and you're the only game in town, you're the Japan series, everybody's watching you, and you have 8 days off, yes, there's going to be implied overreaction. It's okay to be frustrated because we're winless and we don't get to play another game again until Thursday night against a really good team, and that's frustrating. So it is okay. I know the messaging is going to be, oh, well, whatever. The Cubs didn't go there to go 0-2. And I'll go as far as to say this. I bet you that if before the series, Dave Roberts and counsel had a private conversation and they said, hey, would you take a 1-1 series? Roberts would go, yeah, Freddie's not healthy. Mookie's not healthy. Let's just get out of here. Let's split. It's a good moment for baseball, fun series. Let Ohtani do his thing. The Dodgers didn't even really care about winning both these games. They closed the game today with Alex Vesia because they didn't want to use Tanner Scott back-to-back days. This was a silver platter handed to you to at least split this series, and the Cubs didn't even come close. It started with Justin Steele, who was poor. 4 innings of work. 5 earned runs, gave up a couple of home runs. The Dodgers hit 3 home runs, although one of them shouldn't have been a home run. The Cubs not only did not hit a home run today, they did not hit a home run in Japan. In 4 games, they scored 8 runs in the 2 exhibitions, and they did not hit a home run whatsoever. Tough start to the year for Steele. I assume he'll be just fine. Remember, he was out sick a little bit. His stuff looked fine. It was just one of those where kind of reminded me of the Pirates series, the back-to-back outings against the Pirates last year when he made mistakes. He paid for it, and they hit some home runs and whatnot. But to me, the game was lost in the 3rd inning. I was told by people around the league, and then counsel even insinuated it after yesterday, Sasaki might be overamped. You might be able to get to Sasaki. And he was overamped. And with all due respect to the young man who's going to be a tremendous pitcher, he was not good. this morning or evening in Japan time. He walked 5 guys. In the second inning, the Cubs had 2 on, 1 out via the walk, and Pete Crow Armstrong, who had a very difficult 2 games, lined into a double play, but I'll use line in quotes because it was hit about 91 miles an hour. It was not a particularly well-struck baseball. But then in the third inning, in my opinion, the game was lost. Cubs trailed 3-0. John Birdie, who I just like to give a shout out to my partner, Matt Cozy, because we're talking a lot again about John Birdie. Today, it's because he played well, but it's still not a good thing because he's the only guy that hit. He had 3 hits, I think 3 of the 7 that the Cubs had. John Birdie starts the inning off with an infield single. He steals second base. Ian Happ draws a walk. Seiya Suzuki, who had a horrible series, went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. He walks. Kyle Tucker walks in a run. 3 straight walks. It's 3-1. He walks in a run. Up comes Michael Busch. Bullpen starting to get stirred. You could feel it starting to turn here. And Michael Busch, right down the middle, takes a called third strike. Passive hitting, no clutch, no aggression. And then Matt Shaw, who also had a very tough offensive series, got his first base hit, but it really shouldn't have been. He struck out as well. But what happened there is after Busch struck out, and this is what the analytics, this is what the statistics don't really show you, is Sasaki was able to exhale. He got some momentum. He started to really feel like, okay, I can get out of this. And then he executed 3 perfect pitches to Matt Shaw. The at-bat there was Michael Busch. So just same old. It was just same old. And I hate to mention this, but I have to because it's my job to explain the game, especially a game like this, because people didn't get a chance to watch. There were some really bad calls that did not go the Cubs' way today. Did it make a difference in the game? Sure. Is it an excuse? No. The Cubs didn't deserve to win this game. But Justin Steele had Kike Hernandez struck out, was a pretty easy called third strike. Wasn't particularly well caught by Carson Kelly. And I'll go as far as to say I think Carson Kelly did not do a good job defensively behind the plate today. He had a pass ball as well. I just don't think he's used to the way Justin Steele pitches. Steele typically throws so many inside pitches to righties, but sometimes on purpose, even when the target's inside, he'll go after the outside corner, and Kelly just didn't catch that ball well and dropped one of them. Anyways, it should have been a called third strike. 2 pitches later is a 2-run home run, and then Shohei Ohtani hit a home run that really should have been fan interference, called a double, and the Cubs ended up losing the game by 3. So I have to mention that, but ultimately the story of this series to me was just same old Cubs. The Dodgers just did their thing. It wasn't like the Dodgers did anything particularly great. Tommy Edman hit a home run. We told you that was going to happen. Hernandez and Ohtani did their thing, but it was so much more about the Cubs just not taking advantage of opportunities, poor leverage hitting. Yesterday, bad defense. I also must admit, Porter Hodge was okay in his low leverage outing. Ryan Presley was not. He walked 3 guys, and the cynic in me and the Cub fan in me almost wanted that inning to get away from him, because now he got out of the inning and he earned himself another high leverage opportunity, and probably it will get away from him when the Cubs are leading, because that's just typically how things go. He walked 3 guys and got a double play off of the bat of Tommy Edman. It was a pretty good defensive day for the Cubs outside of the pass ball. If you want to take away that positive, I thought John Birdie was excellent today on both sides of the ball. Matt Shaw definitely looks a little bit overwhelmed offensively, which I'm a bit surprised about, but let's see what happens when he faces, some less tough guys. But he was really good defensively as well today, or else this game probably would have been even worse. So the Cubs are 0-2. We're going to talk about kind of, how do you take this? Was this just the same old Cubs? Let's talk some lineup stuff. But overall, it just really wasn't a fun series. And I just, it also doesn't help when you wake up at 4:45 both days, and by 6:30 a.m., the game's already over. But let's talk more about lineup construction and the same mistakes that we've seen these first 2 games. And we're going to talk about that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. Now that the Cubs have started the season 0-2, my focus shifts to my Illinois Fighting Illini, who play Friday night. They'll play the winner of Texas and Xavier. If I had to guess, I think they'll be right around -5.5 or so, maybe 4.5, 5.5 in that game. And if they win, they'll presumably play Kentucky on Sunday. It's a very rare, favorable draw for the Illini. Typically, after these March Madness selection Sundays, I'm always complaining about the draw, but it's going to be a really fun weekend over on FanDuel. Tournament games happening almost every day. There's always something exciting to bet on. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and I wanted to talk about just this feeling, these two games of just kind of a continuation of last year. It just felt very, very same old. Why do I say that? Early in the game, you have a chance to, I don't want to say break the game open because you were down 3 runs, but you definitely should have at least tied it. You should have been able to put a dent in the starter, and you weren't able to do it. Why? Because Michael Busch just had a passive at bat. And when you look at the lineup, Matt Shaw hit 5th today and yesterday, and that's probably going to change heading into Arizona, would be my guess, especially with Dansby looking pretty productive. But the reason why Matt Shaw is batting 5th is because Matt Shaw, when he's right, should be there. And we've talked about this. Michael Busch is not a cleanup hitter. He just isn't. He's a nice player, but he doesn't hit cleanup on a really good baseball team. And those guys came up in big spots today and didn't deliver. And then, the Cubs guys are not going to have any success this year when Pete Crow Armstrong, Matt Shaw have their floors while Kyle Tucker and Seiya Suzuki don't do anything. I know that Kyle Tucker had a nice double in the 9th inning. That's nice for him. That's good for the psyche heading back. And he did have much better at bats today. But Kyle Tucker and Seiya Suzuki went 1 for the series. They went 2 for the entire exhibition plus regular season in Japan. And when those two guys don't hit and your young guys are going through growing pains, you're going to see a lot of this. And Matt and I think a lot of Cubs Nation went into this year pretty confident saying, hey, the offense is going to be better, and it will be. This is 2 games and it will be better. But this is just a reminder that, the Cubs are dependent on guys like every other team is. And they're not as deep as the Dodgers. They're not as deep as some teams offensively. And when you see guys like Matt Shaw and PCA, and look, I'll be honest, I thought Matt Shaw and PCA would have a better 2 games. PCA looked a lot like his old self, his April self last year. I think he needs to do a better job of not letting outs and stuff get into his head and get frustrated. But I think he's going to be fine. But they need more offensively. And they're not going to do much when your 2 and 3 hitters combine for 1 hit in a series, and then your young guys that you are relying on to at least raise the ceiling. So your ceiling raisers didn't do much, and your floor raisers didn't do much, and that's going to be a pretty tough combination. Offensively, the star of the game today was John Birdie. John Birdie had 3 hits in the 9 hole. He stole another base, and Carson Kelly had some good at bats. Dansby had some good at bats, and that's it. Not great ABs from Ian, although he had an RBI single, and Seiya had a really, really rough series. You almost feel for him a little bit coming home and going 0 for the series, 3 strikeouts today. But, offensively, it felt a lot like same old. And this is not supposed to feel like same old. And the biggest reason it's not supposed to feel like same old is because Kyle Tucker is supposed to raise the floor of this offense. And it's only been 2 games, and he had a better day today, like I said. But if he's not doing that, the offense is going to be same old. Kyle Tucker has to play at a top 5 level, top 10 level at worst for this offense to feel different, because we know that these guys are young. We know PCA and Shaw are going to have growing pains. There's going to be parts of this season where PCA and Shaw are 2 of the best hitters on this team, but there's also going to be times where they look overwhelmed like they did today. And you need Tucker to be that floor raiser. You need Seiya to be that floor raiser. And that did not happen in this series. And I just want to say this, and I'm not trying to pick on Kyle Tucker, because he's going to be just fine. And he had a couple really nice swings today, to be honest. And he finally got a double. But this is more of a marquee thing than it is a Tucker point. For those that weren't watching, in the 7th inning, in a 3-run game, the Cubs were down 3. To lead off the inning, Kyle Tucker got ahead 3-0, and he got the green light. My guess is he didn't get the green light. He just always has the green light, and he decided to use it. So not blaming counsel for that. And he popped out, and, that's bad baseball, and that's really, really bad baseball. I would love to know if Barry Bonds would greenlight himself in that situation. 3-run game in the 7th, especially at that time. Tucker was 1 for his time with the Cubs, including the preseason. That's just bad baseball. You don't get the green light down 3. I don't care who you are when you're down 3 with nobody on. Now, if there's 2 guys on, or it's a 1-run game or a 2-run game, it's bad baseball. Why I'm bringing it up, though, because we like to talk about marquee. Nobody brought it up on marquee. You want to know what they were doing in the booth? Do you want to know? They were talking about French fries. They were talking about French fries in the booth. They were sampling French fries. And on the Fox broadcast, AJ Przinsky said something. And from what I've heard, Pat Hughes was not happy about it. And the Marquee Network was talking about French fries. If you want to summarize why nobody takes this team and that network seriously, it's because your best player, the guy that you gave up what could be a future superstar for, got a green light on a 3-0 pitch with nobody on and nobody out in the 7th inning, where a walk is essentially as good as a homer in that spot. And Marquis talking about French fries. French fries. That's ridiculous. Okay? It's ridiculous. And I know Alex Cohen's trying his best. I like him. He seems like a good guy. You've got to be better in that spot. Okay? You've got to be. That's a critical point in the game. JD needs to drop in and say, hey, hey, I know Kyle Tucker's struggling right there with the way he's hitting. You can't green light him there. That was a big spot in the game, and nobody talked about it, and that upset me. Anyway, tough loss, and let's talk real quick before we talk about what's next. Let's talk about the relievers. So I thought Nate Pearson looked really good. He gave up the home run to Shohei Ohtani, and that wasn't a home run. So I thought Pearson looked really good. Good inning from Merriweather. Porter Hodge, he threw a scoreless inning. I would like to see the velocity up a bit. He's still 95. That's just not where he's supposed to be. Supposed to be 97. But he had a scoreless inning, and then Ryan Presley, as we talked about, was a disaster. He fortunately got a double play. Our guy Joe George, who's going to be doing the postcast here, when we start up in Arizona, called him Ryan Stressley. And he lived up to that name. And I really hope this isn't a Hector Neris situation where he doesn't look good, get some decent results early, and then when we really need him to do the job, he loses us a game, because that was not a good performance from him. But ultimately, Cubs get beat. There are some positives. I actually, believe it or not, do have some optimistic takes about, where the Cubs go from here. What do they do, and how do they handle this? And we're going to talk about that coming up next.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and the question now becomes, what next? Because this is all going to be, for us diehard fans, and everybody listening to this, all 500, 490 of you listening to this right now are diehard fans, because if you weren't, you wouldn't be here. And really, really what we have to deal with, and the frustration that we have to deal with, is the fact that we don't get to play a baseball game tomorrow. You always hear it, right? The beauty of baseball is that, hey, you get another one tomorrow. Well, we don't. We're 0-2, and the Cubs don't get a chance to play another game until next Thursday. And, I called this game a mental health game. This was just a game, if the Cubs could get it, it would just be great for everybody's psyche. And they didn't get the job done. And so now what you have to do is kind of regroup and realize, hey, it's just 2 games. And if you want to look at it from a glass half full perspective, the Cubs offensively right now are in a funk, right? They're in a funk. They played 4 games in Japan, and I know the first 2 didn't count, but trust me, they were trying. They went 0 runs, 4 runs, all in 1 inning. And then they scored 1 run and 3 runs. They scored 8 runs in 4 games, and 2 of those games were against non-major league opponents. So they're in a funk. You usually don't get the luxury. To take a breather when you're in a funk. Look at May and June last year. It could really hit you quickly. So the glass half full take is, okay, we need to get Kyle Tucker right. We got to get Seiya right a little bit. We need to get Porter Hodges' velo up. We need to get Ryan Presley, his command figured out. We got to get Justin Steele a good couple innings under his belt before he pitches in Arizona. And you have the ability to do all those things in the next week or so. I guess probably Steele wouldn't pitch, but just, zoom out a little bit. And I think that will benefit the Cubs ultimately, just taking a breather. The pessimistic view would be to say, well, the Cubs are probably due to break out, and if they had one more game in this series, maybe they break out. But I don't know. It doesn't really feel like that. And I just think this team could really benefit from just, on the flight, just kind of just zooming out a little bit. If I were these guys, I wouldn't be watching our show, watching the podcast, watching the articles, because obviously everyone's going to be upset. And it's okay to be upset. Like, that's the thing. We put in so much time, not just me, by the way, not just Matt, because we have a show. You guys, the fans, we go to the Cubs convention. We wake up in the morning. We're excited for this, and they let us down. And that's okay. It's okay to be upset. The difference is if they came back tomorrow and won 11-3, the mood changes, but you don't get a chance to see that. You don't get a chance to experience that because we have to wait some time. And that's the complication of this series. And that's why I just thought it was so important for the Cubs to just get one so everybody could just kind of breathe a little bit, but they're not going to. And what's next for the Cubs is not easy. They're 0-2. And let's be honest, I'll tell you this right now. I'd be thrilled if they were 2-4. I'd be thrilled if they went in Arizona and split and were 2-4. I would be really happy if they came back to Wrigley 4-5. So they're going to have to dig in a little bit. They have a very difficult April schedule. It eases up right around mid-May. I'm not really that much into schedules this year because the Cubs played some of their worst baseball last year against teams that they should have, have been winning. So I'm not going to get too much into that. But this was a tough series. It was a tough team. Ultimately, you never were going to win both. You would have liked to split. You didn't. And, you have to get back to the drawing board a little bit. And the good news is every team's going to go through adversity. Every team's going to go through really difficult moments, and the Cubs are going to go through a difficult moment early in the season, and we're going to see how they respond because the pressure's on. The pressure is on this year. It's different this year. We've talked about it. There's a lot at stake, and you look at the way the roster's built, and it on paper, you have your Tuckers, your Sayas, your Ians, your Dansbys, your Nikos when he comes back, and then it feels like it should be balanced nicely with your Matt Shaws and your PCAs, but when it doesn't go right and nobody's hitting at once, you get nervous. And obviously PCA and Matt Shaw are going to be a part of this team for a long time, and they're not really facing anything like that. But Seiya and Kyle Tucker, especially with 1 year, and Hap and all these guys that have their deals up after next season, it's now or never. And I think it's very, very fair to come out and say that, to come out with all the hype around this series and not being able to get a game. And again, I can't emphasize enough. I'm reading some of the comments. Guys, this was not a Dodger situation. Cubs would have lost to a lot of teams these two games. Cubs did not play well. They cannot play. They did not play well. So I was just reading Kyle from the Setup Man's comment. Yeah, look, I want to circle back on that rant real quick because Kyle says, preach, Marquis production team can't read the room. I don't blame Alex or JD. I agree, but at some point you gotta know what's going on in the game and say, hey guys, we're gonna cut back to that 1 second. Kyle Tucker just swung 3-0 in a 3-run game. Let's just acknowledge that. Okay, back to you, Taylor. You know what I mean? Shouldn't be that complicated. But Cubs got a lot of work to do. I promise you, it's going to be better than this. I know right now it's frustrating. I think the Cam Smith stuff doesn't help. The Jackson Ferris, the Zaire Hope stuff doesn't help. It doesn't help that you got to face Corbin Burns and Zach Gallen next weekend, but it's very early. And this team, when they get going, they will get going. They will have some really hot stretches. That lineup is good. You're going to see a better version of Matt Shaw. You're going to see a much better version of Pete. Kyle Tucker will get there. And we all know, we've watched Seiya for a really long time. When Seiya's bad, it looks really bad, but you snap the fingers and he'll get out of it, and he'll get hot soon enough, and things will turn around. But these next 7-8 days won't be fun. And nor should they be fun because, we put a lot into this. I put a lot into this. My whole sleep schedule's off. My work schedule, I'm totally off. All for what? To watch the Cubs score 4 runs in 18 innings, leave a bunch of guys on base, give up a bunch of home runs, watch the booth talk about French fries and make a couple errors. It was frustrating. There's not a whole lot that went right. But I promise you, and you guys know that I am a negative guy when it comes to this team because most of my life it's been negative. I promise you it will be better. Hang in there. We'll hang in there together. We got a lot of episodes. We'll have another episode coming out for Friday, full episode next week. Maybe I'll do a watch along on Friday or something for the Diamondbacks game. It will get better than this. But this first month's going to be tough, and going 0-2 against the Los Angeles Dodgers to start and playing really bad baseball, basically in all 3 phases, is not going to help things. But we'll be back on Friday. I appreciate you guys so much. The support the last couple of days has just been, it's really been overwhelming, especially for the watch along. I still can't believe, I think we peaked at like 658 viewers for that, right around 6:15 in the morning. So thank you guys so much. And we'll get through this together as we always do. Low moments are part of the year, but there will be some positive moments, and hopefully they come sooner rather than later. Get away from baseball for a while. Enjoy the tournament. Hang out with your family. Hang out with your friends. That's what I'm going to do for a little bit because that was frustrating. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 30 minutes. We'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube. Smash the like button for the algorithm and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber, and this was a frustrating version of Locked On Cubs.